We're on episode 20 of season 3 of Tales from the Darkside, The Swapped. An episode that feels very much like Tales from the Crypt. We get someone maybe coming back from the dead, a lover's quarrel, and some fantastic Louisiana southern accents. This one actually works, and it does lean a lot more into comedy. It features a cast of unknowns, so this would be a recipe for disaster for any other Tales from the Darkside episode, but I really like this one. So we get Bubba, who is a very ugly, deformed, but rich man who has a trophy wife by the name of Annabelle. Bubba is played by Charles Ladlam, who actually died of AIDS the same year this episode came out, and did mostly stage plays before this. And Annabelle is played by Maria Manucci, and this is her only acting credit, and she does quite a good job. Looking and reminding me a lot of the character Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors. And this one has a lot more bite than what we usually see from this series. It also moves at a quick pace.
A lot of old Louisiana hokum.
So Bubba has a trophy wife, who of course only wants him for his money, and she is really in love with the handyman Claude, who looks like this guy, so which one would you choose? Bubba or Claude? I think I know which one most women would choose. And actually, this one reminded me a lot of that ridiculous scene from Harold and Kumar with Freak Show and his wife, Malin Ackerman. Was this an inspiration? Probably not. If you're going to make an ugly character, having him with tons of boils makes a lot of sense, but this reminded me of it. And actually, Bubba himself doesn't seem that bothered that Claude is just hanging around his house. He doesn't get mad at him. He doesn't kick him out. There's even a sort of funny scene where they start tying him up and he thinks it's some kinky, they're going to have some kinky threesome. Once again, just like Freak Show from Harold and Kumar.
How about a foursome?
But they don't end up with a kinky love scene, thank God. Annabelle and Claude end up killing Bubba to, of course, take his money. You know, this is Louisiana, and in Louisiana, everyone knows voodoo. So if you kill someone in Louisiana, they're probably going to put a voodoo curse on you. I've driven through Louisiana a few times. All I see is swamp and Indian casinos, but certainly not a place you want to double-cross people at. So everything seems to be going well. They get married. This Freak Show Bubba character is dead. Well, it seems like he's dead. Claude, this good-looking, handsome, young frickin' stud with astronomically small shirts, begins to have boils on his face and on his hands, and it looks like Bubba inhabited him after all, and was concocting a spell to take over his body. Well, they ended up killing him, but he ended up taking over his body anyways. So now Annabelle gets to live with Bubba forever. And this really feels like Tales from the Crypt. Someone coming back from the dead, someone having a spell put on them that makes their body grotesque. And I think this one's quite good. I'm going to give The Swap a high 6 out of 10. It moves at a quick pace. It actually has a few funny parts. Like I said, when he thinks they're having a kinky sex scene, just ridiculous. They're killing him and he likes it. And for completely unknown actors, they all do a good job. The sets are a lot less obvious in this one too. If you're going to be limited to 1 or 2 sets per episode, at least make it look like this is an actual house. You could have a set that looks like a wedding chapel, which is what they do here, but it's probably the same set as the living room. But you just put up some wedding bells, hang some decorations, and it's now a wedding chapel. Take that stuff down, it's now the living room again. Take that stuff down, and it's now someone's study. This is exactly the way that you hide a low budget, because it doesn't stick out in any way, shape, or form. You see several different locations, and it feels like they live in a large mansion. We're a bit back on track, and it has enough horror elements and comedy elements to work. When things lean too much into comedy with no amount of horror elements, they tend to fail, but this one is edgier than most, features some deaths, features some jokes, features some more edgier jokes, and I think it's pretty good. We only have 2 more episodes left in season 3. Will we continue this slightly upward trajectory, or are we going to be pulled down like we're on some Tower of Terror? So surprisingly, The Swap has a 5.3 rating on IMDb, which is on the lower end. And there's actually not any positive reviews, except for one by Woody Anders, but he gives everything an 8, so I'm ignoring him. But I gave it a good review, so I guess we'll read 2 negative reviews, since all the reviews are negative. 4 out of 10, poorly thought out story. I've been watching one episode after another from this series for the past few weeks, me too, and I've been mostly keeping quiet about its generally steady stream of watchable mediocrity. I'm glad you've been keeping quiet, with a few exceptions. for the better and a few for the worse. But this time I feel compelled to speak out. Is this guy going to start an I Have a Dream speech? Because the story of the swap is particularly poorly thought out. I like how this is the one episode that makes him speak out, not all the jewel cell. Why would the body of the young stud handyman begin to develop the calluses and other deformities of the old man's body if what the old man had accomplished was getting his spirit inside a young body? Can the screenwriter even tell the difference between mind and body? Oh my goodness. This might be overanalyzing it. He cast a voodoo spell in order to do this. He also mentioned that he was developing a voodoo spell to do something else, but they ended up killing him, and it ended up working in his favor where he could inhabit the body of the young man. So he lives in his body, but the young man develops boils because the old man had boils. And as far as the screenwriters know the difference between mind and body, no, they don't. I don't know the difference either. Explain it to me. It's bad enough that the entire plot is obvious from the first 5 minutes. This episode is barely worth watching, only for the sexy Maria Monucci. A pity that this was her only screen credit ever. Whenever someone has one screen credit, you're like, where did they come from? I always assume they're like models. Because she is fairly good looking and tall, so I assume she did modeling, but who knows? Maybe a lot of them come from the stage, I guess. She could be doing stage plays. 2 out of 10, loathsome and not in a good way. The swap is a mean-spirited story from Season 3 of Tales from the Darkside. It's a three-hander, that's 3, about a mean medicine man who lives in the Louisiana bayou, I should say it like that, and is hated by his wife, who's having an affair with a atypically handsome handyman. The two plot to murder the repulsive husband, little bargaining on his genuine supernatural powers. Probably should have considered that. If he could cast spells, might want to think that one through, but they actually don't really let us know that he can cast spells until the end. Look around in his workshop, you can see him kind of messing with some vials, but you don't really get the idea that this guy's a wizard or something. This is a loathsome story in which ugliness equals evil, apparently. The main character is a horrible-looking creature, indeed, covered in boils and warts, just like Freak Show, and overweight to boot, and yet he's the guy you end up rooting for, considering the murderous nature of the other two. The twist ending is predictable, the acting is poor, and the episode as a whole has an unpleasant feel to it, which I didn't much care for. Yeah, there's not really anyone to root for in this one. I was almost rooting for them to have a happy marriage, but you're right, they're murderers. But he's also bad too. Everyone's bad. So, it is a tale from the dark side. They can't just ride off into the sunset, murdering this guy who kept them captive. Next up is an episode, Let the Games Begin, that feels very similar to this one. It's a comedy episode with some sexuality thrown into it, about 2 devils that fight over the soul of a guy who just died. And it's at least interesting. They're trying harder. That's episode 21, season 3. And check out our playlist for all episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000, Tales from the Darkside, Black Mirror, Monsters, Fear Itself, Pet Shop of Horrors, and Cowboy Bebop. Thanks a lot.